If you're a caregiver for a loved one living with dementia, when's the last time you took care of yourself? Too often, with a never-ending to-do list, caregivers don't get around to taking care of themselves. Then they suffer from burnout and even their own health problems. Developing a care plan for the caregiver is up next on Still Time for Joy, where we share practical advice for weathering life's storms and inspiring stories of resilience. Hello, I'm Sandra Levine, host of Still Time for Joy. My guest today is Deb Hallisey, a caregiver advocate and certified dementia practitioner. Welcome to the show, Deb.
Thanks, Sandra. It's good to see you again.
So we have talked in the past about the need for caregivers to learn how to accept help, but first learn how to ask for help. What about getting help for themselves? Why is it important to have a care plan for the caregiver?
It's incredibly important. You know, there's such an interesting statistic that says that most people become a caregiver in 9 minutes. That's one phone call. And if you think of that against the fact that you get to plan 9 months for a baby or a year for a wedding, it's overwhelming to think how one phone call can just completely upend your life. And so we need to realize at some point that we are equally as important as the person we're caring for. And once we can admit that fact, which is really hard sometimes because you think they're the most important person and it's not equal, in those day-to-day tasks, in the worry and the grief, and truly the lack of headspace that we don't make plans for our own self-care. And I think this is especially true if you are caring for someone with dementia and you have chosen to keep them at home. We have to take the time at some point to say, who is my support system?
Because the list of things to do is never ending. Doctor's appointments, dealing with the insurance companies, dealing with legal matters, dealing with shopping for supplies. It just goes on and on and on. And also it changes over time. So there is never a shortage of things to do. So what can happen to people who don't make a plan for themselves? Burnout, exhaustion, anger?
All of the above. All of the above. Really, a self-care plan is critical to maintaining your mental and physical well-being. And we really need to make sure that we start this journey with these things in place. Because the truth of the matter is, and I learned this with my parents, as their world gets smaller and smaller, your world will as well if you don't take care to not make that happen. So keeping connections, taking care of your own health, this is just one of the foundations of self-care for yourself. And it's way beyond getting a mani-pedi. You know, it's way beyond, go out to lunch with a friend. I mean, it really does start with what is going to keep you mentally and physically well.
So what should be included in this care plan for the caregiver? Let's start with physical health.
100%. You know, your own doctor's appointment should be front and center. We are so good at making appointments and making sure our care partner get there. But our health is equally important. And so you should actually have written down, when did I have my last physical? When did I have my last mammogram or prostate exam? And then if you know when that is, you can ask for help because you know when that anniversary is coming up and when you're going to make that appointment. And so, you know, talking to someone, I'm going to need help this day, this time, can you do it? And then negotiating that means you make the appointment when you know you have coverage. You know, after my mother died, I went for a mammogram, and it was the first time in 5 years. 5 years. And so thank God I was fine, but I was taking a very real risk.
Sure. And I did about exactly the same thing. We just keep pushing it off. And I'll do this when things get better. I'll do this when things are less stressful. I'll do this when I have more time.
Which never happens.
Never happens. Yeah. You just have to plan for it, as you're saying. How about our emotional well-being?
Well, I think it's really interesting that we too often just focus on what our care partner needs. And truly, when you get help from them, we are getting help from ourselves. But that's not what fills your soul. That's not what brings you joy. And so I always say to my clients, what did you love to do as a child? Because as we get into adulthood, we let go of those things, all those things that are oftentimes simple things that used to bring us joy. So as a kid, if you love to color or paint or anything like that, is there a course you could take? You don't have to leave the house. You could do it online. You can order, there are these wonderful paint by number kits, and you can actually take a picture and send them the picture, and they will create the paint by number canvas for you and give you all the paints. I used to love to swing on a swing as a kid, right? It just felt like the world was yours as you got higher and higher. And what's to say, at 67, I can't go to the local park and swing on a swing. I mean, it brought me so much joy. It could just be for 5 minutes, but it's kind of that freedom and letting go. Is so important. So kind of remembering, what fills your soul, what brought you joy. And then there's that emotional help and support, and sometimes it just gets too much, and we need to be able to talk to somebody who understands what we're going through. Sometimes we just need to vent. We don't want someone to try and fix it. We don't want someone to try and minimize our feelings. How many times have we heard, oh, but you still have your mother, or you still have your father? Yeah, but that's not helping in the craziness of the to-do list and the mental and emotional, you know, kind of output that you have to have. You know, I had a person tell me sometimes, and I think it's so true, sometimes we just need someone to sit in the mud with us.
Sure.
Because let's face it, caregiving is messy, right? And so you need those people in your care plan as well. And truthfully, I found some of the best folks were, for me, weren't family members, but were friends who understood what the caregiving journey was like, because they're either going through it or they did go through it.
Sure. So it's important to find the right person, somebody who understands, whether it's a friend, whether it's a support group, whether it's a therapist. But yes, you don't want somebody to tell you, oh, it's no big deal, or, they went through the same thing when they actually haven't. So it's somebody who will do that active listening, and that empathic listening is a wonderful gift to have. How about getting away? I found when I did 2 stints of caregiving and care managing in my life, and there was really nothing like getting away for a few days or even longer for people for whom it's possible. Just nothing like getting away from it all to recharge and reset. So, how about making a plan for the caregiver to get away, to have respite? How do you do that?
First of all, make it a priority for yourself. It gets back to, we think the other person has the highest priority, and in fact, we have as much and sometimes more in order for us to continue to function. So you need to make a plan, right? And don't wait until you're so mentally and physically drained that the thought of making that plan is completely beyond you. Plus, if you wait too long, getting someone to take over your duties, whether it's a family member or someone going to a community that has a respite program, you're not going to be able to do it. And so it's really important that you say, okay, at the 6 month mark or the 1 year mark, I'm going to take a week off. If you could do it every 6 months, that would be amazing. And so if you have a plan in place and you're planning 6 months ahead of time, yeah, things can happen. But for the most part, you've got it covered. I mean, for me, every about 3 or 4 months, I get together in the Poconos with friends from college. There's 5 of us. And we've been doing it for almost 30 years now. And when I was a caregiver, I knew what those dates were. And I had coverage for my parents, and I had coverage for my dog, which was the other thing as a part of that. And every time we get together, we set the next date. So I know 3 to 4 months in ahead of time, and I can work towards that. And in between those 6 months, right, you sometimes just need small pockets of respite to fill your soul. It can be as simple as setting up a place in your house or in the backyard that relaxes you, and you can go and spend time there when your car partner is napping, or the professional caregiver is in helping you. You know, and don't feel guilty if you are taking that time outside to listen to the birds and smell the roses and not doing something on your to-do list. That idea of making a plan 6 months ahead of time, getting everything set up, knowing full well it can change, but don't let that stop you, I think is really critical to getting that time you need to reset and refresh yourself.
Sure, whether it's taking a walk for 15 minutes or a half an hour, going to sit in the woods or going to sit at the beach if you can, or getting away for a long weekend or even a full vacation, there is nothing like mentally clearing out all the stress, physically not having those tasks to do every single day. But I think as much as anything, it's the mental break that really, really, really helps to just be able to clear out, take a deep breath, and come back refreshed. Not only do you feel better as a person, but you're also then able to be a better caregiver when you get back, having had something of a break.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I always come back, to get together with college friends. All we do is laugh. I mean, there's nothing better than laughter to really just pick you up. That deep belly laugh makes you breathe differently than you ever do before. So having people you can do that with, whether it's for a night or a weekend or a week, is such a gift. Don't not use that gift.
I just want to tell you one funny story. I don't know what it was, and I'm sure it was just a coincidence, but I went away several times while I was care managing and caregiving for my mother. And every single time before I went away, she would go to the hospital. Every time. And
Oh, yeah.
often wasn't anything serious. And it got to the point where it wasn't just my imagination. She was in assisted living and then memory care eventually. And even the staff were commenting on it. They knew I was getting ready to go away and my mom would go to the hospital. And,
So
I guess it
did
was
you?
a coincidence, but it happened so often. I was beginning to wonder. So I
Yeah.
stopped talking about it in front of her when I was getting ready. I mean, I wasn't telling her I was going away, but somehow she knew. I don't know how,
Yeah.
but
But you did go away, right? Because she was covered. You didn't not do it unless
I
it was really
did go
serious.
away. It got very close to me needing to cancel a couple times, but I did go. I needed to get away. I knew it.
See, that is such a good lesson for people to not, because so often we get into the guilt. Oh my God, I can't go now. She's sick or whatever, and then you never do it.
Yeah.
Nothing in caregiving is perfect.
Yeah.
And so waiting until the perfect time means you will never do it.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, these are all great tips. A care plan for the caregiver. And last thing, Deb, this is not a plan you're going to make in the beginning and never look at again. What should caregivers do as time goes on?
Oh, you should revisit it. Absolutely. You should revisit it like every 6 months for yourself, but also revisit it if if something happens with the person you're caring for. Because we all know that, you're steady, 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 and then something happens. And then there's where the plateau is, right? And then steady, 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 and something happens. And so revisit it when that something happens, because you may need to modify the dates you're going away, or who's going to do what or whatever. That's part of the planning, to look at it and to say, okay, this is still feasible. I make this adjustment, or come hell or high water, I'm going to do it because I know I need it.
And we know that this is not easy. Some people are doing this alone. They don't have a lot of help. You have to somehow find someone, some group, some family member, some friend, or some place where even if you have to pay, that you can get the respite you need in order to keep being a good caregiver for your loved one. Well, Deb Hallisey, caregiver advocate and certified dementia practitioner, always you give such wonderful advice, and I want to thank you for being on the show again today.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me, Sandra.
If you found today's show helpful, please share the information with someone who needs it. and follow Still Time for Joy for more practical tips on weathering life's storms, as well as inspiring stories of people who have turned their pain into purpose. Please consider supporting the work that goes into producing the show on Patreon. Follow Sandra Levine Productions on Facebook and YouTube, and learn more at sandralevine.com.